Hi, everybody. Welcome to Typical Geeks. This is episode 11 with me and my co-host Jack McLean of McLean's Computer. Jack, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'd be doing better if we could figure out how to get Hangouts to work.
I know. Don't you just love it? I'm here with my teddy bear mug, and I'm all set.
You got a chip out of your little teddy bear mug there.
I will not part with this. I got more than one chip.
Oh, I see that. Look at
It is
that.
well worn. It's well worn. Anyhow, we got a lot to talk about, so I thought I'd maybe talk a little bit about this whole net neutrality thing, because there's a lot of information going around the web and a lot of, for the lack of a better term, uh, a lot of maybe misinformation and a lot of scare tactics and link bait and that kind of thing going on about it. So it's really very complicated. And so some of these articles are not doing it justice. Like one of them, there was an article that said the end of internet freedom.
hmm
Well, it's really not that. And so what happened was essentially the FCC for a number of years have these rules. Well, they have rules. FCC's been around since like the 1920s, and they have a number of rules on how what's called a common carrier needs to give everybody equal access to the way they do things. And essentially what happened was that Verizon has challenged the FCC's authority to regulate um, the internet, okay, being an ISP. And essentially they won. A federal judge on an appeals court in Washington, D.C. said more or less the FCC does not have that ability because, number one, they were misclassified. You see, the FCC was classifying them as a common carrier and not an information type identity.
hmm
And by common carrier, they're really talking about radio, telephone, and television. They've not really kept up with the internet side of things. Now, cellular data is never was covered by net neutrality. All right, thus you have the data caps and you have priorities and that kind of thing. But um, at any rate, so this is what's going on, and a lot of people are afraid now that it's going to be the Wild West out there with us being charged more for things like Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, all these sites. That could happen. In a very worst case scenario, that could happen. But the next phase of this thing is for the FCC, number one, is going to take this to the Supreme Court. All right. And so nobody's going to spend millions upon millions of dollars, doing much of anything until this is ultimately settled by the Supreme Court. In fact, uh, Charter Communications, Time Warner, Comcast, and others have all come out saying, look, we're not changing a thing right now. The goal, I believe, in a worst case scenario, is a two-tiered internet. There'll be an internet where you're throttled, services like YouTube, Netflix, and so forth can be throttled, and then there'll be an internet where, for $10 more a month, we'll send Netflix, YouTube, and all that to you full speed. All right. There's also the fear that, well, you take people right now that's got these data caps, like 50 gigs a month data cap.
Right.
Okay. Kind of situations happening there is, Netflix pays some of these ISPs a little additional so that your viewing of Netflix doesn't count against your data cap.
hmm
All right. So you got the 50 gig cap, but Netflix says, well, here's X amount of money to cover these users so they can watch our content.
hmm
So that's already going on. But more importantly, more specifically, I've heard there's different arguments. Come on, the thing about the ISPs, the Verizons and all these guys, is they have already gotten paid for example, to deliver point-to-point, end-to-end fiber through tax dollars, right? You talk to them, first thing they say is, it's our money. We paid for it. We can't afford the infrastructure to get that last mile of fiber to your home. That's crazy. That is total bullpucky because they've already gotten the money for it from the taxpayers. They mismanaged the money.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that last part, by the way.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah. Remember my former ISP, and the reason why I dropped them is because they wouldn't make that last 200-yard run to my home with the fiber. Even though there's people right down the road from me that has it, and there's people in the other neighborhood that has it, they can't run it to my house from the station, which is 200 yards away from me. For whatever reason, they just wouldn't do it. So I've already been on the receiving end of that. But you know the thing about this, it was bound to happen at some point. This whole FCC versus it was bound to happen at some point. You could see it coming, and like you said, they just haven't kept up with the current technology. This whole internet thing's fairly new. It's only been around 30-something years. So I mean, it took them a little while to catch up and figure out what was going on. But yeah, it was just a matter of time that something like this was going to happen, and precedence was going to be set. I don't see anything good coming out of this either way. I really don't. I've sat down and I've kind of went over it to myself, and I don't see anything good for the end user, for the consumer. I don't see anything good coming out of this for us, either way it goes.
Well, what has to happen, okay, is the Congress has to get together and write a law, and more or less, see, the FCC, again, we go back to the 1920s, right? When we started seeing radio and all this other stuff, the federal government always runs behind, so they created the FCC to say, well, this part of the government is going to keep up to date with all this stuff, and short of laws, we're going to give them, some rules with real teeth in them, and they'll take care of regulating, all these things as they come up, and we don't really have to concern ourselves about it.
Mm-hmm.
But they've all been under this standard called a common carrier. Television carries, TV signals, radio signals, and telephone.
Mm-hmm.
They do this one thing. But see, Verizon's going, well, we're an information provider. But if you look at that, your television system is basically now an information provider.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
They're sending, HD, which is all digital. Okay, all digital television. They're putting carrier waves on top of that, for on-demand programming. They're putting data in there for the DVR, for the scheduling, all this stuff, smart television, etc. So they're really they're really an information provider too, even though they're covered as a common carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Verizon, however, is not dealt with this because, as I said, cellular data is not considered to be a common carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already been exempt of this on the cellular side. That's why we've got plans with like 1 gigabyte data caps. Do you remember a case here? It was a few years ago where, I want to say it was Bell, one of those companies. They had a smartphone app that lets you watch TV on your phone, the television programming.
Oh yeah, they've had a couple of those.
Okay, and you paid them, I don't know, $5 a month or whatever to watch the TV on there.
Right.
There was another fellow who figured out how to get his own programming on that,
mm-hmm.
and then he got billed a lot more than the $5 because it wasn't their programming. So it went to court. This case went to court, and
mm-hmm.
a judge made them, I don't know, it was Apple or whatever, but made them disclose what it actually cost them, their cost in providing this programming to your phone, cellular data-wise,
mm-hmm.
and the price. And it turned out that it actually cost them more to provide the programming they were giving for that $5 a month than what this guy was getting on his own.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, basically this is like the biggest lie in the world.
Right.
Okay? You can't really trust what the providers say. They lie through their teeth.
You can't trust anything the providers say.
Whatever they say. Yeah, they're going to lie through their teeth on this kind of thing. I mean, so
yep.
Basically, if net neutrality is wiped out. Now, as I said, it's got to go to the Supreme Court. That's where it's headed next. And right now, this only affects that local Washington area. It's not a nationwide thing. It's not a new law. Nothing like that. So it's status quo for the time being.
But it is going to set a precedence. It really is. I mean, it's going to, whatever is decided, I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's it, but that will be decided by the Supreme Court. Now, in a worst case scenario, we're going to end up in a multi-tier, with a multi-tier internet. All right, and it's going to be, where Netflix has got to fork over money to Charter, to Time Warner, to Comcast, to all the others in order to get equal access to their network speed. Right? So the fear is, and I think it's very valid, let's say somebody comes up with a better alternative than Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Hard to believe, but maybe it happens. And they go to an investor and they say, look at this, and they go, man, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't fund you because it's going to cost billions of dollars for you to go in and buy access to this thing with all the ISPs.
Right.
Netflix is already there, which means that new service will never see the light of day.
Right.
And that's the concern. It's not the technology that's in place so much today as it is the future things coming down the road. And if Netflix and Hulu and YouTube have to shell out more money to the ISPs, ultimately they just want to drink coffee and eat donuts and write themselves big fat checks.
Well, yeah, and their bottom line is, though, they're going to have to that money's going to have to come from somewhere, and where it's going to come from, the end user, the consumer, is the one that's going to get robbed, basically. And
exactly, it's going to come, right.
It all rolls downhill, and at the end of the day, the consumer is going to be the people having to pay for this, because, they're used to making, ever how much they make. I don't know how much they make at Netflix, but they're used to making X amount of dollars. No matter what they have to pay out, they're still going to make X amount of dollars. They're just going to take the balance out of you, and that's just how it is. It's funny. I'm surprised that it's gone this long without there being something along these lines done about it. I mean, if you look at all the services available nowadays, and you made a good point a while back when you said that your television. Even your television now, well, those people that have smart televisions now, which is a pretty good percentage of people, how do you say that that's not what was the two terms you used? The information provider versus
common carrier.
How can you say that it's not they're not providing information? I mean, your Ethernet cable clicks right into your TV, or you have a wireless TV. It's still using that bandwidth. I mean, when you got your smart apps, you have Netflix, you have all these apps running on your I mean, it absolutely is. All it is a mini computer or a dumbed down computer.
Right, but most of us get our TV and our internet from the same provider.
Right. Well, the thing is, well, some people do, some people don't. But the thing is about it, how do you start to you're going to have to reclassify everything if you do this. How do you classify that? Is it a common provider? Is it information? Is it how do you classify that?
Well,
because if I never hook it up, I have a TV in here right now that's capable. I can plug an Ethernet cable into it, and I can run whatever I want to through my television. Okay, it doesn't have wireless capability, but I can jack an Ethernet cable into it. What if I don't do that? Well, now I'm common carrier, right? But the minute I jack an Ethernet cable into it, now am I on something different? I mean, and what about other services like Roku's and Sling boxes and stuff like that? I mean, how do you weed that stuff out?
Well, this is the problem, you see, because I think the last time that the government got together with the FCC about all this was back in the 90s, about the mid, like 1995, 1996.
When the internet was young.
The internet was really, very, very in its infancy, but more importantly, in the land of television, you still were analog, you were still VHF, UHF. And it was strictly a television transmission only.
Right.
Now they've mixed. Okay, look at this argument. I'll just make this argument for a minute. How much, if you watch digital TV all right, HD TV, and you've got a subscription for it through Time Warner, Comcast, Mediacom, whoever,
Right.
that's HD, or it's all digital, how much data, at the end of the day, how much data are they delivering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to your home?
Oh, there's no telling. There's no
Okay, a
telling.
tremendous amount of
Tremendous amount,
it's just
terabytes of data
terabytes of data every month, but yet they
Yep.
want to give you a data cap,
On
50
your internet.
gigs, 250 gigs on the
You
internet.
know, that's never made any sense to me either. That
No, it
we were
makes no
and we were
sense.
talking about we brought that up a little bit the other day when we were talking about this, and that makes absolutely no sense to me because I have a 200. Well, I mean, I have a large data cap, but I have a 250 gig data cap on my internet. Now I have a 30 meg connection. It's 30 megs download speed and a 5 up. And I get close to those speeds every once in a while. If nobody else is on, I might get close to those speeds. But I have a 250 gigabyte per month data cap. All right, now it's going to take some doing for me to hit 250 gigs of data. I mean, I really have to be doing some serious torrenting and some other stuff, some serious streaming to be able to hit my 250 gig data cap. But like you said, with my television, these TVs sometimes stay on all day, all night. I mean, how can you say, well, the 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 terabytes they're downloading, how is that any different from my 50 or my
That's
30 meg
right.
connection?
That's the argument that I'd like to know.
Yeah, I don't know how they make that
What
separation.
makes the internet traffic that much more
Exactly.
expensive?
What makes it expensive and what makes this so cheap? And why can't I get my internet connection as cheap as I get my television
That's
connection?
the
Why
question that I
why
have.
isn't why do I have a 250 gig data cap on my internet connection and I don't have a data cap on my television? That makes no sense to me either. I'd
You
like
know,
to know myself.
streaming a 1080p HD movie, right? A 2 hour movie, you're going to use what, 5, 6 gigs of data?
Easy.
At least,
Easy.
right?
Yeah, at
Maybe
least.
more?
Maybe
Okay.
more.
That's not even taking consideration, the upcoming 4K or whatever.
Right, right.
So, if you've got somebody that's watching that television's on HD channel all day and all night, DVR and stuff,
Yep.
you're telling me that it is cheaper to transmit that data than it is watching a YouTube video?
And
That
you're
YouTube video
using
costs
and
more?
and you're
It's
using
like
the same pipeline to do it.
you're using the
That's what
same,
makes it.
right, same, yeah, exactly.
Same technology and same pipeline
So
to
that's
do
what I
it.
mean. These guys just flat out lie. That's one of the reasons we got some of the most expensive broadband for what you get in the world.
Hmm.
I mean, it's shameful.
Oh,
The state of our broadband for
it's funny you should say that because I was listening to a podcast the other day and there was a um, what is it? Is it Renee Ritchie or it's one of the guys that's always on Mac Break Weekly. I can't remember his name now. I don't think it's Renee Ritchie. It's another guy. He's always doing the Google Hangouts on Mac Break Weekly. Anyway, can't think of his name right now, but he was in Rwanda, Africa, and he had 100 meg connection, 100 megs up, 100 down, internet connection in Rwanda, Africa, for next to nothing.
yeah.
Explain that to me. And here we are, supposedly in America, and we're technology wise way above. Supposedly, we're being told this anyway. And here I am with a 30 meg connection that I'm paying $60 a month for. I don't understand that. I really don't. But my
Well,
TV
it's
can.
very easy to understand. Well, again, the guys that own, I mean, the stockholders in these communications companies want those big fat dividend checks.
Hmm.
They want the people that run them want their golden parachutes, their steak lunches, their coffee and donuts, and their $100 cigars.
Well, yeah,
And
not
we're
just.
paying for it. And because
You're
as
right.
taxpayers,
You're right.
we've already paid for the end fiber throughout the country. We've already paid for that, and they mismanaged all the money, and
Yep.
they bought yachts and fancy
I
office
would like to
buildings.
see I would like to see the paperwork on where the money's going and why, like you said, why is it more expensive from one to the other? I'd like to see you said there's they actually made the one company, what was it, Verizon, show how much it cost them to
It
provide
wasn't
this.
Verizon. I think
Well,
it
it
was
was one of these
I
providers.
think it was one of the Bells.
Okay,
I
what's
don't
one
have
of
the
the bells?
particulars on the case.
Right, one of the service providers. So they made
Yeah.
them provide this data of how much it cost them to provide this much data. Okay, I would like to see the numbers. Let's take Charter Communications for instance, because that's who I have. I have Charter. I have
Okay.
their internet, and I have their television, okay? I
Right.
would like to see their numbers, how much it costs them to provide those HD channels to me every month with what I have, 4 TVs going almost 24/7 in here, 4 televisions going, streaming HD content all day, every day, terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data, versus me watching YouTube videos and maybe uploading a video every once in a while on my 30 meg connection. Why is it I can have all those HD channels in that TV for $50 a month, but my 30 meg internet connection is $62 a month? I
I
would
just
like to
told you
see.
why.
Well, I'd like
I
to see the
told you.
numbers. I would like to see the numbers as to
Well,
how much it costs them.
you can't believe it. You
You
can't.
know,
These guys cannot be trusted. So
no, they can't be
so
trusted.
what can you do? Okay, at the end of the day, what can we do? Well, we definitely have to write our Congress people and do it. You have to do it intelligently, folks. I mean, when people write their congressman, tell them, who you are, what you maybe do for a living professionally. This is my education. Uh, this is the problem and how it affects me. And as a voter, I would like some type of redress from you on this issue. I want to know where you stand on it. And keep it short, simple, to the point. But you got to let them know. Because right now, they're basically, I would say, a preponderance of the people in Congress, the House and the Senate both, have very little idea about what's going on and the unintended consequences of what's going on. And that's really what it boils down. Unintended consequences. Right as it stands right now, really nothing to worry about. Let's see what happens when the Supreme Court gets the case and makes a final decision. But at the end of the day, it's going to probably end up taking a very well-defined set of laws that, it all needs updated. The whole idea of the common carrier, all that sort of thing, it
It
all needs
does.
to be
It all
updated.
needs updated. It all needs revamped, and it's been coming for a while. It was just a matter of time. Let's just hope we come out on the winning side of it.
Exactly. Moving along, Windows 9.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, over the last week or so, I began to start seeing different things on the interwebs talking
Hey,
about the release of Windows 9.
you know me. I'm sarcastic about Windows because it's what I work on all the time, and
Uh,
I'm a little snarky about it, being an Apple fan, having to work on Windows machines all the time. But I'm really looking forward to Windows 9. Let me go ahead and say that up front before I say anything negative at all. I think Windows 9 is going to be a great operating system, and I know absolutely nothing about it right now, but I think it's going to be a fantastic operating system, and you
yeah,
already know, and you already know why.
I know why. Yeah, but go
Yes, you
ahead
do.
and share it with the audience.
Well, it's for those that don't know, or for those that might be new to the Windows world, or for the younger crowd. Uh, I've worked on every version of Windows since before 95, and where I really got my start was Windows 95, and then I went through 98, 2000 ME, XP, Vista, Windows 7, and now Windows 8 and 8.1. All right. So I've been through every version of Windows since Windows 95, and I can say this without a doubt: every other version of Windows is a solid version of Windows. Okay. Uh, Windows 98 was good, Windows XP was good, but before that, if you look back, the one before it is always a really sucky operating system. It always is. You had Windows X, before Windows XP was Windows ME. Windows ME was complete and total garbage. I don't think anybody would argue that. And then you had Windows XP was a solid operating system. It was so solid, in fact, that most people thought it would never be replaced. That's how good it was. There are still machines out there right now running Windows XPs. How good the operating system was. And then you had Windows Vista, which was absolute garbage. Then you had Windows 7, which was a great, solid operating system, and in my opinion, the best operating system Microsoft has ever done is Windows 7. Um, then you had Windows 8, which I think most people would agree. There can be some arguments made for it, but I think most people would agree. Most end users would agree it's garbage. Okay, I think Windows 9 is going to be a great operating system because it falls in that little category of every other operating system. And in my opinion, what Microsoft basically does, without coming out saying they do this, is they beta test their operating systems on the public for about 2 years or so. and they get all this feedback, all this usually negative feedback regarding their operating system, and then the one that comes out after that is a corrected version of what the other one should have been. So you had Windows Vista, then you had Windows 7. Windows 7 looked just like Windows Vista. Basically, I mean, there was a few changes, but basically it was the exact same operating system. It just worked. And that's what Windows 9 is going to be, in my opinion. It's going to be just like Windows 8, only they're going to take out the garbage and they're going to make it work correctly. And I think that's where they're going. I do think they're going to have. I do think that the voice of the people has been strong enough regarding what are they calling it now? The modern UI, the Metro
Modern UI.
interface.
Right.
They used to call it Metro, and now it's the modern UI because somebody had a patent on the Metro interface apparently, and they didn't know it. But I do think they're going to revamp that. I think it will still be there, but I think it's going to be very much an option, a user selectable option. And I think they're really going to, Microsoft is going to have to listen to the people when it comes to this, because the outcry was so bad from Windows 8, I don't see that they have a choice.
As I understand it, the code name for this is Threshold. Now, where it stands right now is that Microsoft is not really, they're just finalizing what the feature set of the code name Threshold is going to be. And there's no build conferences, which is coming up, Build 2014. Typically, when Microsoft is getting really close to a next new operating system, they normally provide the attendees with, an alpha candidate, pre-beta type candidate for them to take and work on.
They didn't do that this time.
They're not. In fact, there's not even any bits ready to go on, as far as I know, on Windows 9. Right. One thing I heard is originally this was going to be Threshold was going to be an update to Windows 8.1. Now let's talk about Windows 8.1 for just a second. Internally, Microsoft is basically some Microsoft employees are referring to Windows 8 as the new Vista. All right, that's internally to Microsoft.
That tells you something.
Windows 8.1 addresses a few things about Windows 8 that people didn't like. In my opinion, didn't take it far enough. The problem is that there's only about 25 million users of Windows 8.1. Now we're talking, I've seen estimates around about 1 billion to 1.5 billion PCs out there in the world. 1 billion to 1.5 billion.
I'd say that's probably a conservative number.
Okay, so and 25 million are running Windows 8.1. This would mean that it is totally tanking. Tanking. I don't think, and I'm not arguing about whether Windows 8 is good or bad. It is tanking in the marketplace. I predicted that Windows 8 would be a commercial failure before it ever got into the public. I was proven right on multiple fronts. Not because it's the new paradigm that Microsoft wanted to thrust upon us and not give you a choice on.
Yeah, that's that right there. You said it right there. I think if Microsoft had went from Windows Vista to Windows 8, I think Windows 8 would have been a success. If they'd have went from Windows Vista to Windows 8, I won't say it would have been a huge success, but it would have been a lot more successful than what it is. But instead, they had this great operating system in Windows 7, perfectly stable, perfectly fine, fast, the nicest operating system, better than Windows XP if you ask me, as far as stability and speed wise. And they tried to replace it with this. They went in, they changed everything, and they tried to replace it with Windows 8, and they didn't give people a choice in the matter at all. They just said, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to, like it or not, and that didn't sit well with people at all.
Well, Jack, I got to tell you, if they would have went from Vista to Windows 8, we probably wouldn't have much of a Microsoft today.
You don't think so?
No, you can't do two big steaming turds and back to back. That would
one shot.
That'd have been too much.
I tell you what, I think I'd really rather run Windows 8.1 than I had Vista, though. I'll be honest with you, because you can do something. You can do something about it.
Look, I use Windows 8
Right.
on my marketing computer. Okay, it's a Dell.
Windows 8 is fixable. Windows Vista and
Right. You
Windows
know, it's
don't
not.
to
I
begin
mean,
with.
once you get past, if you live and set it all up where you can function in the desktop. But
You
my
can do that
question is
now.
this. My question is this. What by doing all this, what did I really gain at the end of the day?
You didn't, and that's the whole
When I
point.
went through the pain of an upgrade,
Hmm.
what they called an upgrade,
Right.
by the time I got done, getting a start menu back, and doing all that and tweaking much as I could,
Where's the benefit?
what benefit to get? Now, and as you were saying, there's people who say, well, it's faster. Well, marginally fast. Look, I use an SSD anyways, so
Right.
Windows 7 booted
You're not
crazy
going to be able to
fast.
tell much of a difference.
Yeah, Windows 7 boots crazy fast
You
anyway.
know,
Okay.
I run a standard, what is it, 7,200 RPM hard drive over here.
Uh,
250 gigs my boot drive, and I have run Windows 8 and Windows 7 side by side, and I can tell no. Windows 8, I believe, is a couple of seconds faster on boot. Period. That at the end of but as far as everyday tasks go, you can run benchmarks that will give you a slightly higher score on Windows 8 than on Windows 7 using the same machine. But with running common everyday tasks, Notepad, Microsoft Office, internet browsing, stuff, things like that, file transfers, there is no perceptible difference in speed whatsoever. And I would challenge anyone to show me anything different.
well, now file transfers I would say are better and
I
quicker
haven't
for me.
noticed a difference. For me
Yeah,
personally, now
I've noticed. I
it
noticed
could
that.
be because I'm running old hardware, but I haven't
Yeah.
noticed any difference in file
Um,
transfer speeds.
what I notice particularly is one shutdown is quicker.
Hmm.
All right, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
But there's tweaks you can do to Windows 7 to get them to shut down
Yep.
quicker. There's
Yep.
things you can do to get it to boot faster. I
And
mean,
that's what I've argued too. I mean,
yeah,
people who say that
right. I mean, but
Windows
you
8
have to
is so much
manually
faster.
go in and make some
Right.
registry
Right.
edits, and you have to do some things in MS config, and there's
Hmm.
some things that you got to do in Windows 7 to get that to shut down. I know that there's a setting under HKey local machine current control set. Um, gosh, and then you
Yeah,
go in and
you set the right. If the
basically
default.
when you're ending processes, you
Right. The
close,
wait to
you'll
kill
do it right
timeout.
away.
Wait to
Yeah,
kill timeout is
yeah,
normally set at
exactly that.
it's
Yeah,
normally
and
set
that
at 20,000, and which is 2 seconds. Basically 20,000, which is
yeah,
normally 2 seconds. If you
yeah,
set that down to a 5 second or 5,000, it sets it down to a half or a quarter of a second.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Get out of here. I'm done with you. Get.
Well, then that's the thing. The thing I've always said was people who think Windows 8 is faster have never been on a truly fast Windows 7 machine. They haven't. Apparently, they
Well,
haven't.
don't you think some of that's the placebo effect?
I do. I think it's the new and shiny placebo effect. I firmly believe that they could not change. They could have not changed anything from Windows Vista other than a shinier UI, and they could have put it out there, and people would have been, "Yay, it's the latest and great." And I say that because when I was running, when me and everybody else was running Windows XP and Windows Vista came out, everybody said it was the greatest operating system ever. Every technician I talked to, yes, this is the greatest thing. It is so fast. It is perfectly stable. And within a year or two, they're like, "Oh, this is horrible. This is," and I'm like, I told you when it first came out, it was horrible. Why didn't you listen then? It took you a year or two to figure it out.
Well,
But
by the time Microsoft kind of got Vista massaged to where it was working pretty
Service
well.
Pack 2, Service
Yeah,
Pack 2.
right. But see, part of the problem initially was with Vista, if you recall, is they used the term, especially hardware makers, were selling laptops and desktops as Vista compatible.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, but they
They
were
were
essentially
running.
underpowered, especially on the
Oh,
graphics side.
grossly underpowered. I
Uh,
remember getting in machines, HP and Dell. HP and Dell were probably two of the worst about this, but I was seeing HP and Dell machines come in with 512 megabytes of RAM running Windows Vista. That's
Wow.
not even enough to boot Windows Vista. I mean, it
Are you
really. I mean,
sure?
that
I've
was
never
like
seen one of that.
I seen them
I've seen
running
like
512.
2 gigs. I've seen a
No,
lot of machines with 2 gigs come.
512 and 1 gig
But
is
they
what I've
didn't
seen
see a
coming
lot
in.
of them didn't even have the appropriate hardware for Aero
Mm-mm.
glass.
Yeah, well, that's the video card. They didn't have the
Right.
appropriate video
They
card.
sold them. Well, it's compatible.
Oh, it's
It'll run
compatible.
it, but
Yeah.
not with Aero glass or any of that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you're not saying anything unique that a lot of people don't say. That Microsoft seems to get it right every other release. So that brings us back to Windows 8.1. Now, my original understanding was that Threshold was going to be a update to Windows 8.1.
Mm-hmm.
But now Microsoft is very eager. This is one theory I put forth, that Microsoft is very eager to get out from underneath that Windows 8 name.
They're trying to distance
They're
themselves
trying
from
to distance themselves. Now, the reality is that in 2015, Windows 8 will be 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because it came out November or October of 2012.
Right.
So
Last
around
year or
October
the
of
year before.
2015 will be so they
Right.
come out with a new operating system once every 3 years anyway.
Well, other than when they went from XP to Vista, but yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And so they're on this new release cycle, and so it just makes sense to me that why would you make this Windows 8.2? The big problem I have is that of course Microsoft's going to want to be paid for this.
Mm-hmm.
Another paid upgrade. Now, feature set wise, the main things I hear it's going to be much more desktop friendly again.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the start button, but the start menu makes its triumphant return. It's going to be much more desktop user friendly.
Right.
There's going to be a new version of modern UI where you'll be able to run modern apps within your Windows desktop.
Now,
sure
what you're saying is based on
well, right. This is this is stuff by reviewers Paul Thurrott of the Windows Super Site
right.
21.
But let's keep in mind before we get too excited about the start menu coming back and about the new UI features and stuff like that. Let's look back a few years and let's not forget Longhorn and Windows Vista. Let's not forget what Windows Vista was promised to be with Longhorn. And when we actually got the finished product, it was nothing like what it was promised.
No, they had to drop that. We were supposed to get WinFS.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't have WinFS.
No, and I mean that's what I'm saying. We were promised these features with Windows Vista. We were promised a lot, and with the Longhorn project, and then the Longhorn project, if you remember correctly, it just quietly died off, and they stopped advertising it about 6 months before Vista hit the market, and
Right.
You didn't hear any more about Longhorn. They quit talking about the features, and all of a sudden they gave us Windows Vista, which was a
but that's what Microsoft does, Jack. Is
right, and that's what I'm saying. They
Just
may
like
be doing
Threshold, you'll hear Threshold
right.
about 6 months before the release, and then now it's Windows 9.
Right.
Even though everybody knows that's what it is.
No, but I'm saying
Windows 95 was Chicago.
Right, but let's not, like I said, let's not get too excited about the return of the start menu, a dedicated start menu, or any of these features.
Well, I don't think anybody should be excited about this. This is, a matter of fact, something that should be provided to registered owners of Windows 8 to begin with.
I think so. I think it should be. Apologetically. It should be supplied to anyone who has a current Windows 8 license.
I totally agree.
And it should be given to you with a handwritten letter of apology from Microsoft.
Well, at least substantial. Well, here's the thing. Microsoft's not in a position to give away free operating systems. I mean, it sounds nice. I've seen some op-ed pieces. Well, look at Google gives away Android, and Apple just started giving away Mavericks.
That's three different business models.
But that's totally different. Google's ad supported, Apple is hardware supported,
Microsoft is software. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But if you're not going to give it to your users, at least sell it to them for a substantial discount.
You know what? $29.
Yeah, $30, something.
$30,
like that.
$49, whatever.
At least the first line, something like that. Do the right thing, Microsoft.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. As far as now, I mean, there's some things in Windows 8 I really, really like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like the what is that? The control. There's the Task Manager is awesome in it. Way better, way more useful than the Windows 7. And as far as Arrow is concerned, it's pretty, but it doesn't add to my experience at all.
Hmm.
Of course, I can just turn Arrow off anyway.
Right.
You there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So you can turn that off anyway. Um,
No, in
the
the
backup system, I think, is substantially better in Windows 8 versus Windows 7. People can argue one way or another.
hmm uh, the
File
thing.
transfers is better. So I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some big improvements in Windows 8, but
There's some improvements under the hood. I think I will say I will I'll admit that I think there are some minor improvements under the hood from Windows 8 from Windows 7, excuse me, from Windows 7 to Windows 8. I think there are some minor improvements under the hood. I don't think anybody could argue that. I just think that it's hard for most people to get past the glaring problems that face you as soon as you turn the machine on. Before you start getting into the guts of it and why there are some things that are better, you have to get past this horrendously useless garbage Metro, and then you have to turn it off, and then you have to download a third-party application so you can bring back the functionality of the operating system you had that there was nothing wrong with. So once you get past that, if you can get past that, yeah, there are some features and there are some under the hood improvements
well, I'll argue
to
about
Windows 8.
functionality. Jack, I'll disagree with you about functionality. It's the way you get to that functionality is what changed.
Agreed, agreed. It's the
Okay,
same functionality, but
it's a new way, a different way to get to
right.
the same end result.
Right, and it wouldn't have been bad if we'd have been walked into this slowly. If we had been, say Windows 7 Service Pack 2 come out and it introduced some of the Metro features, or maybe they changed the menu bar to more of a Windows 8 style menu bar in Windows 7 with the Service Pack 2, it may not have been such a shock to people. But when you go from doing things the same way for 25 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, no, we're going to throw that way out the window and go to a completely different way of doing it. I mean, you're going to throw a lot of long time PC users. You're throwing them out the window right there.
Well, I think there's no doubt there was a lot of, for the lack of a better term, arrogance on Microsoft's part
Mm-hmm.
that
Exactly.
we're beholden to these manufacturers, because PC sales are down.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this out there and try to kind of, not gently, but really nudge them towards a touchscreen laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get them, touchscreen based computer, and our system builders out there will make a lot of money.
Right.
So I think it was a very arrogant approach. And when you've got well over 1 billion PC users out in the world, it smacked them right in the face. It came right back and smacked them right in the face, and they understand that. and I get the idea of having a common code base between tablets and PCs and laptops. We are going to see, I think another thing we're going to see is Windows Phone and RT is merged as just one operating system.
Which it should have been the whole time.
Which it should have been anyway. But that's...
it comes down to this. I think Microsoft was trying to find a solution to a non-existent problem. That's what it was. It was a solution waiting for a problem. I think their approach to Windows 8 was fundamentally flawed from the get-go. And here's why. If you're going to be on a desktop operating system, you need a desktop operating system. It needs to be mouse-based, point-and-click based, keyboard-based, but that is your UI. That is what works with a laptop, and that is what works with a desktop. When you want a tablet operating system, that works well on a tablet. Now, Windows 8, I have seen on I've seen the UI, the Metro style interface. It works great on a tablet. Works great and looks really nice on a phone, and works really well on a phone. But that's just not the way people use their computers in real life. I don't want to touch my laptop screen. I don't.
No,
I have no
neither
desire.
do I.
I mean,
Neither do I.
if I'm going to do that, I'm just going to go to an iPad because that's what you have as a tablet. So to try to mix the functionality, um, I know I sound like an Apple fanboy, and I am an Apple fan. But if you want to see it done right, look at iOS versus OS 10, and they have some of the iOS functionality in OS 10. They do, but it's hidden, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to. It's not forced on you.
Do you
Uh,
remember a vehicle called the El Camino?
oh, I do. I do. I have friends
Chevy,
that
I
own
think it
one.
was Chevy that made the El Camino.
Oh, a beautiful car.
Yeah. Was it a car or was it a truck?
Well, it was both. It was both. They
And
couldn't
guess
make up
what?
their mind, and it was also one of the biggest failures in automotive history because
There
of
you go.
that.
There
Because
you
it couldn't
go.
decide. It couldn't decide what it
What
wanted
I
to
am.
be, and it didn't do any of it well.
Yeah, so and that's Windows 8 in a nutshell. It is Microsoft's El
El
Camino.
Camino. I love that. That's what we should call this podcast. It's Microsoft's El Camino.
It is exactly what it is, and it's an engineering exercise.
You
It
you
was
have the
an
name for the
arrogant,
show there.
it was an arrogant ploy to force their way to get people to buy touch-based computers. And of course, the manufacturers really weren't ready for it with affordable touchscreen devices after they had saturated the market with netbooks.
Right.
And people are used to paying $399 or less for a laptop. And to say, hey, to play, you got to be at that $800 range. That ain't going to work either.
Well, that's because 399 was devoted to the touchscreen itself, and you were left with $200 for the hard drive, the RAM, the motherboard, and everything
Right.
else that goes with it. So.
And now today there are some decent touchscreen laptops for around $500-600. That there are out there, but I still don't want one of those.
No.
And I think that I speak for most people that a tablet is a media consumption device. I mean, that's what I use it for. I do no real work on my tablet.
Hmm.
I just take it, lay on the couch with it, and I read the news and watch videos or whatever I do with it. I just use it for fun. But real work, that's what I've got a desktop PC for. If I need to be mobile, I've got a regular laptop to do that.
Right.
But irregardless, Windows 8 is not terrible in as much once you set it right and get it back as more or less a desktop system is just fine.
Oh yeah, once you put it back to Windows 7, it's
But
great.
so there was no reason for people to go out and upgrade to it. And unfortunately, people buying new PCs, especially from the Best Buys and the Walmarts and all that of the world, they got hit machines with Windows 8 going, we don't like that. We don't want that.
Right.
How many machines got returned? How many laptops got returned back to Best Buy and Walmart and stuff because of Windows 8?
I've heard some very high numbers. I'm not going to say, but I have friends that work at Best Buy, and I have friends that work at Walmart and Office Max, and the numbers that they're giving me are high enough that I have to question them myself.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's put it this way. My local Office Max. My friend there said that their return rate on Windows 8 machines was over 70%, and that was just at one store, one location. So I don't want to say that is a cross sample of everybody, but at one store, one location, one Office Max, their return rate on Windows 8 machines was about 70%. And that was within the first week, 70% within the first week of ownership. Now, of course, they have to fill out paperwork on this stuff, and he's the guy that does the paperwork there, so he got to see this. And he says it's about 70%. Seems a little high to me, but I don't doubt it. That being said, all but one Windows 8 system that has come into my shop, they have begged me to remove it and put Windows 7 on it.
Yeah,
all but one.
I don't doubt that at all.
So.
Don't doubt that at all. Just kind of change the subject for a minute. There's a new game that's going to be coming out this summer, Titanfall. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I don't think I've heard about it. That is
an awesome looking game.
I have to look it up. I haven't heard about that.
I've been goofing around with RPGs, role-playing games.
Uh-oh.
I have. And just what gets to me, they're either most of them seem to be like middle-age based type games.
Right.
or
Yeah,
they're
the next time we see you, you're going to be like huddled in the corner with your keyboard and mouse, and not you hadn't bathed in 4 weeks. It's like you're gonna
no,
have a
no,
bag of
no, no,
Cheetos
no.
beside you.
Well, yeah, but some of these look really, really cool. I think I'm going to get Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. That's the
Right.
next game I'm
That
gonna
that
play.
I have seen some online demos of that, and that is a beautiful looking game. It really is.
Fallout
I mean,
3.
I think it'd be worth it just for the visuals on that.
Man, you should check out uh, Titan. Yeah, that Titan game. That looks amazing.
I have to check it out.
You gotta check it
You
out.
know me. I tend to
But you're
avoid
not a
stuff.
gamer though, are you? You don't really play a lot of games.
I do, but the reason why I avoid gaming is because when I get a new game like Call of Duty or Modern Warfare or something, or not Modern Warfare, but Call of Duty, some first-person shooter. I'm a big Call of Duty fan, but when I get a new game like that, I feel the need, a Battlefield or anything like that, I feel the need to play this game all the way through to the end until I get to the point where on the campaign mode I can play it all the way through on the hardest level every time, and then I feel confident enough to go out and get online. And as soon as I do, I'm dead instantly because you got these professional gamers out there. So I end up all heartbroken because I just got cursed out by a 12-year-old. And then I go back to I don't play any
I
games
am
anymore for like
stuck
four
right
months.
now on Battlefield 3 campaign mode. Third thing is called Uprising campaign,
Hmm.
and I am stuck. I
Can't
keep
make it.
getting killed in this one part over and over and over again. I'm like, you went through a tunnel, and I don't know if you played Battlefield 3 or not, but
No, I haven't. I haven't.
you go through a tunnel and then you have to work your way back through this parking lot to get back to be extracted, I guess. And I mean, my wife, bless her heart, she gets so mad at me because I'll just be so frustrated. 'Cause I'll slam the controller down. I
Well,
got killed
you
again and
got to do
again.
you got to do it. Sometimes you got to just go about a completely different approach. I've done that on a lot of the first-person shooters, and especially in campaign mode. And sometimes you just need to get up, take a break from it, and come back and go at it. And this is what works for me. It may not work for you, but I have found that if I try to play a game in the middle of the day or late in the afternoon, I don't do so well usually. But if I'll get up first thing in the morning with a clear mind and not a lot of other stuff going on in my head, and I do the exact same board, I would do much better on it because I don't have like I guess you could say I just have a fresh start, a fresh mind, and not all the burden from the day going through my head while I'm trying to play this.
Yeah,
And I think that it helps me. And sometimes it just takes, sometimes you just need to step back and go at it from a fresh approach. You might have to Google it and find out if is
I
there some better.
did, man. I've watched walkthroughs on this thing, and I'm doing what these guys are doing. I'm still getting wiped out.
So you're doing
But
what
you know
they're
what? I do play late at night, and I'm normally pretty bushed when I finally grab my
right. Try
controller.
try first thing in the morning
Yeah,
when you're
I
fresh.
might try that. But
Say,
I've been playing Battlefield 4 on my PC.
get your second cup of coffee in you before you
Yeah,
pick it
but
up.
I've been playing Battlefield 4 on the PC, and that's really a beautiful game. It's got some glitches and hiccups to it,
Hmm.
but all in all, it's a pretty decent game. But these RP now, the Skyrim, um, if I just want to kill time, I just load up Skyrim and walk around,
I
enjoy the
don't get a lot
scenery.
out
That's
of games like
basically
that.
what I do, huh?
I never got a lot out of World of Warcraft. Skyrim is like a modern version of World of Warcraft to me, and so I don't mess with that either. I just don't get much out of those. I get bored, and I
So
just
what about racing games like Forza or GTA? Something. Well,
used
GTA
to
is not really a race. Well, it is sort of.
right used to I did. I like what was the one where you could customize your you could get all these cars you buy you every time you win a race you get some more money
That's
you could
Forza, I believe, or Gran
customize your
Turismo. I
car.
think Gran Turismo.
Maybe. It was about maybe 2, 3 years ago, but I really got into this one racing game where you could customize your vehicles. And I had like 30 cars, and I had them all customized and all this. And yeah, I mean, I got into it for a little while, but typically it don't suck me in like a first-person shooter does. And the thing I like about the thing that I love and hate about first-person shooters is when I get involved with it. If I sit down to play it right now, as soon as we get done with the podcast, I sit down and I start playing a new game. I'm going to be here until I finish it. It doesn't matter. It
Oh, I
doesn't
can't do
matter.
that. See that?
See, and I know it's going to cost me work. It's going to end up, you know, and so I'm like, I can't do that. So I just typically I'll stay away from them. And if I can't walk away from them in 5 minutes, I don't mess with it.
What I do is about 8:30 in the evening. So it's after a pretty substantially long day, and I'm normally, like I said, kind of tired anyway.
Right.
I'll fire up the Xbox and lay there on the couch and start in on a campaign, and I'll play for a half hour, 45 minutes, but no more than an hour.
Well, you know, I'm in a situation.
I'm done, and I come back the next day and pick it up.
I'm in a situation right now where I really can't play any of the new games. My video card is not substantial enough to really play any of the new stuff. You know, I'm running.
You got an Xbox, right?
No, I don't have any consoles.
Oh, I thought you had an Xbox.
No, I had a PS3 and I got rid of it. So I don't own any consoles, and the PC that I have or the Mac that I have, neither one has a video card really good enough to play any of the modern games. So
gotcha.
Until I upgrade equipment, I'm going to be game free, and honestly, my work is probably better for it.
Well, anyhow, I recommend folks check out the trailers on YouTube for Titanfall. That looks like an amazing game. I want that game. So right now it's available for pre-order. So check it out. I think we probably need to be wrapping up this episode of Typical Geeks. How about you, Jack?
Sounds good.
All righty, everybody. Take care until the next time.